Hey, Mark, 5:59. Do you want to get rolling?
Yep, just pressed record.
Okay.
All right, hold on. Let me get my things here. My settings, make sure I have everything.
6 o'clock on the dot.
Roll.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to IYM's 16th Annual Prep School Fair. I'm zooming to you from New York, specifically Brooklyn. I see we have a lot of New Yorkers. We also have families from other states and from around the world. Wow. Hong Kong, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Kenya, Costa Rica, and even Nigeria. Well, thank you very much for joining us all today. We are very and truly humbled. My name is Mark Chung, and I'm the founder and president of Inspiring Young Minds. More importantly, I'm a parent, and I will always speak to you as a parent. Some people ask what IYM does, and my answer is exactly that. We inspire young minds. 16 years ago, we were just like many of you here today, looking for a better educational opportunity for our son, Mark Jr. The day that he was accepted to 6 boarding schools was the day that changed our lives. We wanted to help other families, and IYM was born. Although Mark didn't go to junior boarding school, it was our biggest regret because the option was there to apply, but we declined. It would have made his transition a lot easier. If we could do it over again, it would have been an easy choice, knowing what we know now. Today, you will hear from some amazing junior boarding schools and some of our IYM parents and students. I hope your children ask a lot of questions. I would now like to turn this over to Evan.
Is Carrie going to go before me?
Yes, thank you very much. Carrie, would you mind doing some housekeeping?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone, and thank you once again for joining. Really quickly, just please mute your lines if you're not already muted. Also, all questions for the panelists, please use the @ symbol with the name of the schools. The panelists can be identified with the school's name before their name on their little block where you see their faces on the Zoom. And that's it. Let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Mark. On behalf of the 9 junior boarding schools that are here tonight, I just want to say thank you to all the families who are showing up. We are all a little bit different from each other in terms of the size of our schools, our geographic location. Some of us are in all boys schools and some of us are co-ed. What we do share is a passion for and really an expertise in working with young men and women during the transformative middle school years. Tonight, you're going to hear from each one of us. We're going to start with just going down the line. Everyone's going to say hi, introduce themselves, say which school they're from, and talk a little bit about their location and enrollment. After that, you're going to hear from 3 different of the junior boarding school representatives, just talking about different aspects of life in a junior boarding school. You'll hear from 2 different sets of parents about their perspective, having their children go to a junior boarding school. And then you'll hear from 1 student who's enrolled at a junior boarding school, or I'm sorry, maybe 2 students who are enrolled at junior boarding schools as well. At the end, we're going to have questions and answers. Certainly, if you want to type a question into the chat box at any point in time, one of us might be able to get to it, or we can do all of the questions at the end. My only request is that we do try to keep questions as general as possible about the junior boarding school experience or the application process. We're all going to be here tomorrow for the fair, and we're more than happy to talk to you about each of our individual schools. We're obviously passionate about them. There's a reason we work at them, and we're more than happy to celebrate our programs and what we think makes them special. But for tonight, it's more about general junior boarding school application type questions. So I'll start. As I said, my name is Evan Campbell. I'm the Senior Enrollment Manager at Rectory School. We are a school located in Pomfret, Connecticut, which is right up in the northeast corner. We're a co-ed junior boarding school that has about 150 boarders, with about 90 of them being boys, about 60 being girls, and then we have about 70 day students as well. Up next, we have Doc Potter from Bement School.
Thank you, Evan, and thank you, Mark, and everybody for being here this evening. My name is Doc Potter. I'm the Associate Director of Admission at the Bement School in historic Deerfield, Massachusetts. Bement is a co-educational day and boarding school. We have about 50 boarding students and enrollment of about 200 overall, split pretty evenly 50-50 between boys and girls.
Awesome. Thank you, Doc. Up next, we have Chip Audette from Cardigan Mountain School.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for coming, so to speak. My name is Chip Audette. I'm the Director of Admissions at Cardigan Mountain School in Canaan, New Hampshire. Cardigan is an all-boys school, grades 6 through 9, with typically about 200 boarders and 20 or so day students.
Awesome. Thank you, Chip. Up next, we have Carl Koningsbauer from Eagle Brook School.
Hi, Carl Koningsbauer, Eagle Brook School, and we are in Deerfield, Massachusetts. We're an all-boys school for boarding and day students. We have about 200 boarding students, about 50 day students. We focus solely on the middle school years, so we are 6th grade through 9th grade. And for about 100 years, we've been shepherding students, young men into manhood, and as they come into their own in the classroom and in the athletic fields. So we are coming up again, like I said, 100 years next year, and really just enjoy getting the most out of our students.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl. Up next, we have Matthew Green from Fay School.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Matt Green from Fay, and Fay School is located in Southborough, Massachusetts. We serve students from kindergarten through 9th grade. We have a combination of day students and boarding students, co-ed school. Our boarding program starts in 7th grade and runs through 9th grade. We have about 155 boarding students total, and then 135 day students, an international population representing 26 different countries around the world, and close to 14 states around the United States.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Up next, we have Greg Hendrick from Fessenden School.
Again, yes, Greg Hendrick from Fessenden. Thanks for coming. Fessenden is an all-boys school. We are located in West Newton, Massachusetts. It's about 10 miles from downtown Boston. We serve pre-kindergarten through 9th grade, so we have a wide range of ages. The boarding program technically begins in the 5th grade. However, the vast majority of our 105 boarding students are 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. So thank you, and I'm sure you're going to learn quite a bit tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Up next, we have Charles Brown from Indian Mountain School.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, IYM. Indian Mountain School, located in Lakeville, Connecticut, in northwest Connecticut, about 2 miles from the New York border and about 7 miles south of the Massachusetts border. We are a pre-K through 9 school, about 90 kids on a separate pre-K through 4th campus. And then on our upper campus, 5th through 9th, we have about 105 boarders, grades 6 through 9, and about 120 day students. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Charles. Up next, we have North Country School and David D'Amico. Is David on?
Am I off mute?
Oh, there he is.
That's better.
Upper left-hand corner on my video. North Country School is a progressive co-ed school in upstate New York. We hosted the 1932 and 1980 Winter Olympic Games, which puts our village on the map. We're serving grades 4 to 9 boarding, 25 domestic boarders, 25 international boarders, and 25 day students. So we're a small family-sized school. We offer a project and place-based program that develops a student's intellect and creativity. The curriculum is built on a 220-acre campus with the following natural assets: a working farm, extensive organic gardens, private lake, rock climbing ledge with 30 different pitches, an alpine ski hill, and extensive cross-country ski trails. And our experience integrates classroom academics with hands-on learning in the farm, gardens, and extensive studio arts, all in a family-style residential life setting. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And last, we have Ben Tuff from Rumsey Hall.
Good evening. My name is Ben Tuff, and I am from Rumsey Hall School. We are in Northwest Connecticut as well. We're about an hour and 45 minutes north of the city and have a great tradition of working with IYM and with Mark. It's awesome to see how this has grown and developed over the years, and all of us as schools look forward to getting to know each one of you and each one of your child or your children. Instead of explaining kind of who we are, we have 130 boarders on an average year. If you want to look at all the info, it's all on our website. But I'm going to just kind of sum it up. You know, what makes a junior boarding school different? And there's been no time more, I guess, specific to this time anyway. Parents can relate so well to how much their children are driving them crazy. You know, stuck inside during COVID or getting to wear masks. The fact that we all as individuals and we all as schools actually enjoy that process and enjoy coaching them through what is most likely for many of these kids the most difficult time of their lives, to help them grow up, to help them find themselves, and to get them to that next level, and to push them to that secondary school that they've been striving for. You know, that's a really special thing. And all 9 of our schools have a long tradition of working with kids, and we're all excellent at how we do it. And in my eyes, you can't go wrong with any of our schools. Each experience for each school might be a little bit different, but as far as what we offer the families and the students and how we go by allowing them to develop and gain what they need for that next level, that's what's most important.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So those are our 9 schools. I know it's a very, very small nutshell. Like I said, we're more than happy to discuss our schools with you tomorrow at length. At this point, we do want to just celebrate a couple different aspects of going to a junior boarding school. So up first, we're going to have Doc Potter from Bement. He's going to hop back on, and he's going to talk about the benefits of being on a boarding school campus and the advisory program.
Sure. Thank you, Evan. And I echo Ben's sentiments just about, you know, the sense of all of our schools being a little bit different. But one thing I think that we all do really well is making sure that all the students that come to our school have that sense of community. And it's sort of a shame that, you know, they talk about the junior boarding schools and people, you know, have never heard of us and don't know where we are. And it's a real shame, because that sense of community that is such an integral part of our schools, it's really the rock, the foundation of all of our schools, is so important to us, and especially really helps bring new families into our schools and make them feel part of the community right way. And there's a lot of different ways in which community is conveyed at our schools. Being involved in a junior boarding school and working at a junior boarding school, all of the people that do it because they love to do it, and that engenders a certain type of community feel that really helps students make the transitions into our schools that much more quickly. And it really helps them succeed in multiple areas of their lives. Many of the adults at our schools, in fact, I'd say most of them, wear multiple hats. And so the adults at our schools are getting to know the students that much better. From the second that they step on campus, you know, their teachers are also going to be their coaches, their dorm parents, and their advisors as well. And that's actually one of the ways in which community is sort of conveyed at our schools is our strong advisory programs. Usually teachers will have, anywhere between sort of 8 to 10 advisees who they are responsible for. And those advisors are really not just in charge of the academics or overseeing the academic lives of students, but really their whole lives at the schools. They are resources for students and parents alike. That is sort of one layer of community that you'll see as part of our schools. And they really, help students overall with their daily lives, checking in to see how their schoolwork is doing, how their social life is going, how they are, dealing with time management, not just in their schoolwork, but how they're sort of parsing out different areas of their social life, and really making sure that learning is a foundational part of their entire being at the school. The other part of that as well, from a community standpoint, is, and this to the same degree is part of what the advisors do, is making sure that the students have a distinct sense of home and sense of place. That is a way that we are conveying community to our students. I tell this story sort of every year, but one of the greatest, I've worked at Bement for about 8 years, and my sort of favorite moment that really showed me what our community was about was we were having, I was a dorm parent in the younger boys dorm, and we had a group of students who were all sort of coming in from the end of a vacation, arriving back into the dorm after winter break, and they hadn't seen each other for a couple weeks. And we had this moment where there was this explosion of students into the dorm, and I had a student from Zimbabwe, from China, from Mexico, and from New York City, and they all came and they were so happy to see each other that they just sort of tackled each other and were laughing and smiling and sort of fell on the floor in this big ball. And it was just this moment of that doesn't happen everywhere. And it was really great to see, that sort of sense of community. All of these students who had just been at the school for less than 3 months they were brothers in that moment, and they were really, in such a short amount of time had become so invested in the school as their second home. And so, the community that you get in our schools, again, as Ben said, we're all going to do things a little bit differently. But that sense of community and the sense that we have that strong advisory program as our foundation is integral to what we do.
Awesome. Thank you, Doc. Up next, we have Carl Koningsbauer from Eaglebrook, who's going to be talking about how athletics and the arts impact our students.
Right. Being a true middle school teacher and educator, I had to come up with a little bit of a theme for this, and there'll be no quiz. Hopefully it helps you remember what we have to say. So I got the 5 A's for this category. The first one is approach. And I think all of our schools really do champion the whole child. We want to make sure that not only are they getting a great academic experience, the residential experience, but also they're getting the healthy living by their sports, and then also their creative skills are getting tested and honed with the arts as well. So we really push them to experience and explore the whole world. So that's our approach piece of it. The second A is advantages. I think junior boarding schools and boarding schools in general have a serious advantage in terms of offering everything in one place. The fact that we have phenomenal academics, and then you can go and you can take your pottery class, you can take your stained glass class, you can sing, you can play in the band, and then you can get to the hockey rink or to the lacrosse field or whatever it might be, all within the same day and without ever getting in a car, I think is really important. So it's definitely one-stop shopping. And a boy that we have here this year from Jamaica, I think really articulated it well. He was driving 2 hours a day between going to school and swim lessons and then a couple other extracurriculars. And he's cut that commute down to about 5 minutes walking from the dormitory to the academic building into the pool. So he loves that. It gives him a lot more time to connect and less time in the car. So that's one thing I think is a serious advantage. I think the second advantage is our teachers, our coaches, and our dorm parents. So our faculty really get to know your sons and daughters, in so many different walks of life. So it helps us as we go into a math lesson, knowing that they may have scored a goal the night before, or that they had an excellent performance in the play. So I think that those are the advantages. My third A is, to answer the question more specifically, would be athletics. And for each of us schools, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, we require 3 seasons. And that's going to give our students an opportunity to try new things. I think in the admissions office, and so many times we have students sit across from us saying that they want to be the next NHL hockey player or NBA player or whatever it is, that they kind of identify as athletes coming in. And I think the cool thing is that they get to experience new things, and maybe that they wanted to really play soccer and found football, or started running cross country or whatever it might be. So their horizons are widened because of that 3-season requirement. Each of us have different levels for our sports too, so they don't have to come in with previous knowledge or skills. But if they do have some expertise in an area, we have coaches and levels that can push them in that as well. And then I think the breadth of our offerings are pretty spectacular. The fact that you can, be skiing in the wintertime and mountain biking in the fall, and then strapping up the lacrosse helmet in the spring is pretty cool. And those are only 3 of 20 or so different offerings that some of these schools have. So I think that's pretty neat. The fourth A is arts, and again, that transformational experience. I love seeing our top athletes on stage or singing a cappella. It's, our small communities don't really align for specialization. So students really need to play sports and be musical and try the arts. So I think that makes for a really cool community. And then the way that the arts work for most of us is either going to be through the elective program, so a class during the day, and then so it could be band or a visual art, and then for some of us as well, there's opportunities outside the class day. So whether it's after sports or in the evenings, we kind of pack the schedule full. So there's lots of opportunities there. Again, just like sports and our classes, our art offerings are pretty expansive. So kids can have lots of opportunities to try new things, and within the year, within the term, and really the sky's the limit. I think for us at Eagle Brook, and I know a number of other schools have clubs as well, where if it's not maybe something that's offered, they can get a faculty sponsor and start up on their own. So I think that's how some of our programs start as well. So that's the arts. The fifth A is a total stretch just to try to get to 5, but I'm confident that you'll have an A+ experience at any one of these junior boarding schools. So I'm sorry for the cheesiness, but that's the arts and the athletics.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl. The last school you're going to hear from, North Country. Dave D'Amico is going to speak about how our schools support kids and their families through the secondary school application process.
And I trimmed it down from 5 bullet points to 4, so not quite as much information, but enough to hit the salient points, I hope. We all agree that it's about the journey and not the destination, but there are exceptions to that rule, and one of them is that a lot of people come in with a dream of a few high schools, and the junior boarding schools are a launching pad for that secondary school list. All of our schools are well equipped for guiding students through forming their secondary school list the summer prior to 9th grade, and in some cases starting in the spring of 8th grade, helping with the application process, including support with essay writing and mock interviews. The guidance process keeps in mind a balanced list of schools, knowing that financial aid is often a very strategic part of that process. So that's point number 1. Number two, we serve as testing centers for the SSAT, and at many of our schools, some test preparation is available. At North Country School, we recommend that you dedicate summertime toward this process, as we have little time in our schedule for test prep during the academic year. So that might vary a little bit from one school to the next. Point number three, during the fall of junior boarding schools, we have high school admission officers visit our campuses from a range of well-matched schools. This year, Zoom visits and presentations will take the place of those campus tours. And then lastly, all the junior boarding schools offer, and this might be one of the greatest strengths for all of us, it's a more intentional or developmental first year of high school for those questioning, why do the first year of high school in a junior boarding school environment? You're getting an environment where ninth grade students are the leaders, as opposed to a 9 through 12 program where you're the freshmen or the beginners. So leadership roles for ninth graders in all of our schools, think about it, includes the dorms, the fields, the stage, and in class. Junior boarding school ninth grade leaders feel very confident interviewing, sharing their stories of independence and familiarity navigating the boarding school environment. So clearly, a confident ninth grader does beautifully interviewing at their dream schools or any of their schools.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Up next, we're going to pivot and you're going to hear from a couple different sets of parents. Up first, from Indian Mountain School, we have Baron and April Whitfield, who, when you look at their sweatshirts, you can tell that they're very Indian Mountain proud.
Yes. My name is Baron. This is my wife, April. And our son's name is Noble, and he attends Indian Mountain. Noble began Indian Mountain just last year as a reclassing 8th grader. And it was through IYM that we were introduced to this whole preparatory world. We never knew much about it. And we started the journey, and we've been very pleased with how Noble's progressed. Someone just mentioned about confidence. We've seen a lot of confidence built in Noble. We've seen him thriving and just happy, and it was a big difference from where he was presently at in school 1 year, and the next year it was like you can hear it in his voice, you can see it in his grades, you can see it in like someone mentioned from Eagle Brook, the 3 different sports he's tried out, cross country, which he never did that before, and he did pretty well. Basketball was his main sport. He did excellent there. And lacrosse he was going to play, but due to the pandemic, it was closed off for that year. But I think it was just a great experience so far for him. And right now he's a 9th grader and he's a prefect. And so, as someone mentioned, he is one of the leaders there on the campus. And I can recall back to him being an 8th grader in his middle school, and I don't think it was celebrated as much as I see it celebrated in a junior boarding school, where that last year of that particular grade, you are treated as a leader. And so I don't even want to share something.
I, as a mother, that's my firstborn. Noble was 10 pounds when he was born. Okay, so I went through the labor and had a C-section because Noble was. So that's my heart. That's a part of me that I would never give anyone an opportunity to take and nurture, because that's what I do. And I never thought that I would be so strong to send him away to a boarding school. However, Indian Mountain and Mark, speaking with Mark Chung, Mark totally embraced us. And that embrace was so warm, welcome. It was so welcoming. And then to see Indian Mountain School and how welcome we felt and how welcome Noble felt. He knew that that was the place for him. So what I want to say to parents is your child will feel warm, welcome, and wanted in the place that they see fit, and that nurtures their excellence and their goals for their future. Noble he's always been an achiever. He's always been an excellent guy. However, there he seems to want to do more, strive to do more, and his independence level has soared. So I thank you, and I thank all of you for being here to encourage parents to have this experience. It's hard to give up your child, but when you do, you're so thankful that you gave your child up to something so great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baron. Thank you, April. And good luck to Noble as he starts applying to high schools as well. I know that's going to be another process to get through. Up next from Fessenden, we have Wyatt and Monique Ben.
Hello, everyone. I'll be speaking for two today, so just excuse me. So one of the things that April said that my wife felt was, why am I letting my firstborn go away to school? You know, you're taking my child away from me. And I can tell you the difference between Wyatt last year and this year is a totally different student. He's a proctor. He completed his own application. He submitted it without us checking it or anything like that. And what you start to see is they start to figure out who they are and what they need to do to become themselves because of the environment that they're in at the boarding schools. Wyatt is an introvert, so, you know, he's a big kid, so he stands out. And for him, he never quite fit with, you know, he plays lacrosse and he plays two musical instruments. And so is he a band kid or is he an athlete? And I think at Fessenden, he had the opportunity to just be himself and develop into who he is and who he will become. So that's one of the things that we really, you know, we were happy with. Gives them a chance to take a stake in his schoolwork, you know, before being railroaded by high school. So that was also very important for us. And one of the last things I'll say, last year when we dropped Wyatt off at school, we were also moving to Texas. So we, in essence, dropped him at school and said bye and got on a plane and moved halfway across the country. But we were confident enough with the people that we met at Fessenden, with the environment, that he was going to be taken care of, right? We weren't there, and this was the first time he was away from home. I think he slept away from home one night prior to that. This year, dropping him off, I was sad because it was almost like he was saying to us, okay, Kim, I'll see you later. Like, I don't need your, you know, I don't need your help. I'm good, I got it. I'll figure out what to do. In being a proctor, he was there earlier than the rest of the students. He was in the dorm by himself. We called him. He goes, why are you calling me? I was like, just want to check on you. He says, I'm fine. I got it. So, you know, the key here is the kids get an opportunity to be themselves, develop themselves before going to high school that can be thousands of kids. We came from a small district, 1,400 kids in high school. If you came to school in Texas, you'd be going to school with 5,000 kids in a high school. And, you know, if you're not sure of yourself, you can essentially get lost, you know, and be a lost year for your 9th grade year going into high school. So for that, we are truly blessed by, you know, to meet Mark and found out that we're from the same country, you know, and kind of strike that conversation and for him to help us through this process. So the IYM, I call them a family, so they're, you know, part of my family, and so are the people at Fessenden.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And good luck to Wyatt as well as you navigate the secondary school process too. Up last, we have Kiera and Isaiah Harris from Fay School. Going to be talking about the student experience at a junior boarding school.
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Isaiah Harris. I'm a 9th grader at the Fay School. This is my 2nd year at Fay. So when you talk about an experience as a student at Fay, it's different things. There's sports, there's arts, there's all you could ever have in a school, but it's different. The culture is different. The community is welcoming, And I see the improvement in myself, especially with public speaking. Because like a year ago, I would not be able to do this at all. And also the big thing about any junior boarding school or boarding school in general is being away from your parents and being responsible and holding yourself accountable for things. That's also a very big thing I learned, and I matured greatly in this process. And I thank IYM for everything. It's a true blessing. Thank you, Mark Son.
Hello, I'm Kiara Harris, and I'm a ninth grade proctor at Fay, and it's also my second year. And if I describe the student life, I would say it's very welcoming, it's fun, it's exciting. And I remember my first month going to Fay, I thought I would be very shy, nervous, didn't make friends, but like I said, the community was very welcoming. I made friends easily. And they really taught me how to manage my time when it comes to work, because I only had the amount of time I had to do work. So I learned to prioritize what I had to do, and it helped me fix my sleep schedule, of course, because lights out. But the overall experience is very fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you, Kira. You guys seem awesome. Enjoy your ninth grade year. It's a really special year. I know that time winds down quickly, so enjoy it. That is what we have. And now we want to turn the tables over to you guys as families and answer any questions you might have, whether it's about testing, about the application process, about the experience of being a boarding student at a junior boarding school, even a day student at a junior boarding school. I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm not sure if any have gone directly to Mark, directly to Carrie, or if they have a list of questions, but we're certainly here, excited and willing to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Evan, until some questions come in, I was hoping to just add on what Mr. Ben was talking about, his son Wyatt. And I just wanted to add that Wyatt came to Fessenden and kind of associated as a lacrosse player. And the poor guy wasn't even able to play lacrosse during his first year at the school, and he has still found so many other successes, which really just speaks to all of these schools, the opportunities that we provide, the confidence that he has shown as a young man. And I just am really hoping he gets to show his lacrosse skills off as a ninth grader. But this is just such an invaluable experience. So I just thought that was worth saying.
Absolutely. Carrie, Mark, have any questions come into you guys when people were?
I got a couple of registration questions. No questions came through the chat, so I'll just go through some of the questions that came in, and I'll just call on one of you guys to just answer their general questions. So let's see. Cardigan. What kind of procedures are in place currently regarding COVID that are different from a typical school day prior to COVID?
Wow. Well, there are a few things. I guess the most for both the faculty and the kids, the most obvious difference for us, and we're almost all boarding, so is we've gone from meal times where we'd have 220 kids and the faculty all at once to 3 different sittings, just for spacing and social distancing during meals and those sorts of things. So that's been different. In terms of the day-to-day class procedure, we have the boys, when they're going from class to class, wear masks. Once they get in class and get settled, they can take them off. And again, when we were preparing for the beginning of school, and you're talking about 220 middle school boys, and you're talking about social distancing, that was presented a challenge. But I think that both the faculty and the kids have, are still adjusting to this sort of new normal. But there are a lot of the protocols that you would expect. The masks, lots of hand washing, social distancing wherever you can. But also we want them when they're in class, they spread out and they feel as normal as possible. They don't have to wear masks when they're playing sports. And even if they're hanging out on campus and they can maintain social distancing, those sorts of things. So, but the most obvious thing for us was really the meal times. It's just a little odd. Other than that, our all school meetings right now are held outside. I can't imagine that will continue for a whole lot longer. It's starting to get cold in New Hampshire, but I think we've got the protocols in place. The kids seem to be adhering to them. The faculty is, and it's just a new normal.
Thank you so very much for that. I have a couple more questions. Let's see. Charles from IMS. What are your school's safety policies and protocols? Specifically, how are your dorms supervised?
Thanks, Carrie. That's a good question. And I think like most of us in the junior boarding school, as opposed to the secondary schools, we're dealing with middle schoolers here. So there's a lot more supervision. At a secondary school, you may find kids just, an adult in an apartment at the end of a dorm kicking open their door at night, and kids have to go check in at, say, 10:30 or 11. But for us, we are, and I know I speak for most of the junior boarding schools when I say this, we are with the kids at all times. With the exception of obviously when they're sleeping. And so there's a lot of supervision. There's constantly a dorm parent on duty. There's a dorm parent waking them up in the mornings, taking them over to breakfast. At Indian Mountain, our boarders aren't coming, the dorms are locked throughout the academic day. So they're not coming back and forth. And then it's not until really after sports that an adult about 5 o'clock will open up the dorm for free time. And then a proctored study hall in the evening, and more free time, lights out. And then that adult will stay on the dorm for probably 30, 45 minutes after lights out. And then on each dorm, there's what's called an overnight. So there's an adult that the kids know in the case of an emergency. So let's say they wake up feeling sick, or something happens in the middle of the night. They know that on a Tuesday night, they call Mr. Brown at extension 154. He's the Tuesday night overnight. And then, there'll be a new dorm parent that comes in at 6:40 to wake them up the next morning. In terms of supervision on the weekends, again, anytime the dorm's open, there's an adult on duty in there. There's an adult taking them on, obviously not in a pandemic, but in a non-pandemic school year, taking them on various trips. And when we're doing that into the community, there are always at least probably 2 adults with each group. So yeah, safety is something we take very seriously. Most of us are located in pretty rural areas. We're on 600 acres here at IMS, with not too many houses around us. So we don't have like a security patrol, so to speak, but it's again, in a boarding school community, because everyone lives here and everybody's working here and going about their lives, anytime anything seems out of the ordinary in terms of safety, it's going to be noticed and reported and whatnot. So we're very blessed though to live in have our schools in really safe environments.
Thank you, Charles.
Harry, could I just jump in real quick? I received a question privately, and I will keep them anonymous, but I just figured I would address it because I think this is a good question for the group to kind of address. It asked about if there's a minimum score requirement for the SSAT. and then also financial responsibilities. So I think talking about kind of the SSAT process and financial aid process is obviously a very important conversation. I can certainly start off if others want to jump in, but I think generally speaking, I think a lot of our a lot of our schools do require some kind of testing. So whether it's the SSAT, the ISEE, or other standardized tests, there are schools that require it, there are schools that don't require it. So I think that's a very important question as you go through this process, and to make sure that you know what each school and their individual requirements are. I'll say specifically for FAE, we don't have a minimum score requirement, but we do require a standardized test. Now this year, we are not requiring the standardized tests because it's very difficult for students to find a testing center and be able to take those tests. But I would say on a normal year and in years past, we have required that test. Now, a lot of schools do have in-house testing too, and in-house assessments that they can offer the students to kind of replace those tests. So again, I think it's just a very important conversation to have with your admission officer to make sure that you go through and you understand exactly kind of what each school's different requirements are. And I would say that's very typical with the admissions process too, and the application process. Every school is going to have these slight differences, potentially. So you want to make sure you go through that process and go through that checklist with your admission officers. In terms of financial aid, all of us want to make our schools accessible to everyone. So, you don't have to be wealthy just in order to go to a private school. We want to make sure that we give access to everyone. And that process is very confidential. It's very individual as well. So there's no kind of standard across the board that, we'll give this percentage of financial aid to everyone. So, again, that's a conversation to have. Certainly with the admission officer, usually there is a specific person within the office that deals with the financial aid. So you want to make sure you get in touch with them. There is an application process for financial aid. So, be prepared to go through that process as well on top of the admission application. And again, that person in the office will be able to take you through, what that application looks like. But certainly and the parents, can speak up, those who went through the process. It is, and when I say the word process, I mean it. There are certainly some things that you have to prepare for and make sure you kind of take the time to go through. So in terms of that, we try and make sure that application is thorough and complete, and then usually that comes out with a certain percentage of financial aid that you qualify for. So it's, I would say at FAE, there's it's not a point where it's where there's a lot of negotiation back and forth in terms of financial aid, but I think schools, like I said, we understand that what's on paper isn't always what's coming out of the pocket every year. So I think certainly you want to have those really honest conversations with the admissions office. And let them know exactly kind of what is manageable for you. And, I can speak for all of our schools. Again, we want to work with you, and we want to make sure that we give you access to our school.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt, Carrie, can I just add one thing? I agree with everything Matt said. And one thing that I think parents, it's kind of comforting to hear is that I believe we all use the same provider for that financial aid process. So you do not have to if you want to apply to 6 different schools, you can go look at those 6 schools, but you only have to go through that financial aid process one time, and SSS sends it to each individual school. So that makes it a bit easier.
Thank you, Greg. One other question. 1 second, let me just see which one. Okay. Let's see, Doc from Mint. If there's an outbreak on your campus, how would the boarding life change for boarding students?
Sure. So we actually, and this is going to be probably a little bit unique to Bement. We actually have a situation this year where, we have a smaller community of boarding students than some of the other junior boarding schools have. We typically have about 50 students. We have a little bit fewer than that this year, just because some of our students from China, the pandemic caused a little bit of difficulty with visa appointments, which allowed us a little bit of wiggle room in terms of what we did with our with the boarding students who could be on campus. If there was to be an outbreak on campus, because some of those students were not able to travel here, it allowed us a couple of extra buildings with which to sort of quarantine people if we needed to. One thing that I think all of our schools are doing right now very well is making sure that that places are being sterilized, that protocols in terms of a routine from beginning of day to end of day is consistent, and that students and dorm parents are being vigilant in the way that they're wearing masks, socially distancing, and making sure that those spaces that they use are cleaned multiple times throughout the day. I can tell you my office specifically gets any surface that is touched is wiped down 3 times a day. So that is something that we are doing day to day. But in terms of if there was to be an outbreak on campus, we have the flexibility to be able to use certain spaces as quarantine spaces. I can't necessarily speak for all of the schools that have a bigger, I don't know if there's a school that wants to sort of piggyback on me to what they're doing specifically or what they would do specifically in terms of if there was an outbreak on their campus, but that's just specific to Bement.
Thanks, Doc. Rumsey, would you like to jump in on that?
I'd like to jump in on any of it, sure. Yeah, we're the same. We kind of planned accordingly this year, and instead of having 130 boarders on campus, we dropped our boarding number to 110, and with about 20 fewer boarders, that allowed us to free up 2 dormitories and actually 2 other buildings on campus. So we have the capability to, because we're a co-ed school, we could do 2 girls quarantines and 2 boys quarantines if need be. Plus, our health center is actually a designated hospital because when we built that a few years ago, and our nearest hospital is about 20 minutes away, but we decided to make the extra investment on making ours a certified hospital where staff could live in and take care of kids, and we can take an additional 10 students in our health center. So I think that you'll find that at least as junior boarding schools go, we are a lot better prepared than your average day school because we have the facilities and the manpower, and also perhaps the power as far as the money to the resources, I guess, to make this work. And similar to most schools, we all have our own nurse. We have 6 full-time nurses at Rumsey, and a full-time, not a full-time doctor, but a doctor that's here at least 3 days a week, seeing students for ailments or, sore throats or what have you. And that really helps kind of stay ahead of everything instead of having to make an appointment, take a kid in. And a lot of us, I know at least for Rumsey, as far as testing goes, we have all on-site COVID testing. So we kind of got in early with the testing facility. And if ever a faculty, staff, or student has any kind of COVID, and especially with cold season coming up, we're seeing more of this. If they have any sort of sore throat, runny nose or fever, then we immediately give them a COVID test, send it out, and we get it back the next day. So I think that as far as preparation goes, we all are doing as much as we possibly can do during a difficult time.
Thank you so much, Ben. David, North Country. So Matt had a question that came through directly to him. How do schools ensure that there is no bullying?
I'm going to compare bullying with COVID, but based on those responses that we just heard about COVID, all of our schools make a particular focus on little details. And that's something that larger schools can't do. As students get older into some of the high schools where we place them, they have a lot more freedom. As somebody was saying earlier, the dorm parents at the end of the hallway, you go see them if you need help, and they will come and scan the hallway every hour or so. In the junior boarding schools, we're there with them during study hall, we're with them during meals, we're with them on the field. There are important moments, for example, on our campus, going from the main part of our school. We have a farm on our campus, so students walk about 5 minutes. We can see them, but they're kind of on their own during that little nice walk where they can maybe flirt a little bit or throw snowballs, since we're in snow country, walk alone, walk in groups. So there are some healthy little moments of time where students can be on their own, but they're always watched. Eyes are always on them at all of our schools. And again, there are small exceptions in between class, in a room behind closed doors. But there are two important factors. Again, the ratio of adults to kids, which is very close. The attention to detail that the educators are placing on the students. And then lastly, middle schoolers are good talkers. So we can get the truth out of them. They haven't developed some of those skill sets that you get in high school and beyond to maybe tell a white lie or keep a straight face. So even though it sounds like I'm kidding, it's true that they speak the truth in middle school for the most part, and our eyes are on them. So I think there's very little bullying, and when it happens, we address it.
I would just sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
I was just going to say, to piggyback off of what David was saying, yes, there are many eyes. In a junior boarding school setting, we are dealing with a different subset of kids. They're younger. They need a little bit more attention. There are a lot of adult eyes throughout campus on those students. But because we do know them from so many different angles, we pick up on things that others don't. So we are able to read our students in a way that perhaps does not happen at other schools. So I would just add that.
Can I just add one other thing, Carrie?
Yep.
Sorry to keep adding to this question. I would say a lot of things are also destigmatized on a junior boarding school campus. Our best athletes are in the spring musical. Our most talented musicians are trying to play even rec basketball. If you're a student who needs learning services, you just go and get tutoring while some other kids are doing study hall. We want to support each individual for who they are. And given the size of our school, yes, we have everything in place to monitor them and to make sure that they're under supervision. But I think that our kids, knowing the construct, and obviously I know a lot about Rectory, but from what I know about every other junior boarding school, there's the only way you can really be marginalized is if you marginalize yourself. And if you do, we're going to address that on an individual level too. And then, like David said, there's just no room for bullying on any of our campuses. And, unfortunately, kids will be kids, and kids will at times make poor decisions, but we all address it very quickly. And if we have to, very severely. Our top priority, and I say it to any student here at Rectory, number one priority is your safety. Number two priority is your happiness, right? And we're going to make sure that we keep you safe, both physically and emotionally. And we're going to make sure that we keep you as happy as we can.
And actually, I'm just going to add one more thing. Sorry, Carrie. It's a huge subject, and this is something that comes up, with a lot of parents and and it's really this age group. Like the others have said, it's just a very common issue. But I think with all of our schools too, we do a great job of education and making sure that we educate the students explicitly about these types of issues. At Fay we have wellness classes. We have a group called Community Connections where students can really open up and have a safe place to talk about these issues. Again, it's really part of their day-to-day education on not just bullying, but certainly bullying is included in this, but, you know, a lot of these kind of social issues that these kids are dealing with, and, you know, how to manage it, and, you know, hopefully, you know, kind of how to overcome it, and then how to just not do it, you know, at the end of the day. So, I that's the last piece. I'll make it quick, but I really do think that the explicit education of these things with the students, and, you know, making sure that those discussions aren't just happening in the dorm or in the moment when you see it, but they're happening actually on a day-to-day kind of basis with the actual academic curriculum as well.
Thanks, Matt. Carl, you got quite a bit of questions rolling in now, guys. So, Carl, with regards to diversity and inclusion, how would you ensure that all students get the same opportunities and support at your school?
Yeah, I think, again, I'll talk a little bit about Eagle Brook, but I know full well that it's similar with each of the junior boarding schools. But to get onto Eagle Brook's campus, you have to go underneath a little trestle and then drive up a little hill. And I think, you know, we really feel as soon as you drive onto campus, you go through that trestle, everyone's on the same footing. Doesn't matter where you are coming from around the world, what your parents do, and how much, you know, what car you're driving up the hill in. I think that's all really important. For us, and again, like I said, most of the schools, weekend activities are for the most part included. And if a student wants to go off and do something, that they have the ability to do that through the student bank account that either is supplemented by financial aid or through the parents. And so there's those opportunities are for everyone. The classes are open to everyone. I think, you know, we really cherish diversity in our settings. So it's so cool. I think Doc kind of explained the group of kids, and they all hugged each other, embraced, and where they were coming from. And I think that we celebrate those differences, and then, you know, really bring them together to make everyone understand that we're all together and we're very much more similar than we are different. I don't know if I really how well I answered it, but I think it's definitely hit, and it's a concept that we're working with. We also have you know, different affinity groups at Eagle Brook, as I'm sure other schools do. So students that are coming from like backgrounds can come and meet and share experiences and find that support as well. So feel free to chime in, other schools, for what you guys do as well.
Yeah, that was the other part of the question too. Are there any committees, that are, you know, diversity and inclusion committees that were, you know, as a result of everything that's happened? Have you guys done anything different?
Yeah, again, we've had them for years, the affinity groups. So that's definitely been part of it, our already established program. We're definitely working to build in a more diverse curriculum in terms of the books that we're reading in the classrooms and the different voices that are being presented. And the other thing that we've started a couple of years ago were some roundtable discussions. So Friday night, where you come and kind of have a topic to discuss as a, you know, voluntary basis. But it's really neat. I think middle school is where the students are really coming into their own voice, and so they go from kind of regurgitating what their parents have, you know, said and what they've heard at the dining room table, to now kind of starting to find their own perspectives. And I think this is a really cool environment to do that in a very safe one. And you know, you learn a lot here, and I you know, I've learned as a teacher and a faculty member every day as well from our students. So it's great.
Hey, Carrie, can I jump in there?
Yeah.
We at Indian Mountain, and I'm sure some other schools have done this as well in the last couple of years, we have a DEI director, director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's a top level administrator within our school. Her job is really to challenge us as a community to look at the norms in our culture and how we are really using best practices in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, as Carl said, we've all been embracing and celebrating diversity. But, you know, we're at a point, I think, where we can all dig deeper And these roles of DEI directors are really a wonderful tool that not only our administrators and faculty are using, but also our students.
Thanks, Charles.
And could I share one more little point?
Absolutely, David.
I would love for our listening IYM families to realize not only should they not worry, but they should feel a position of confidence, because all of our schools embrace this equity and inclusion to the point where we want to go out of our ways. We want to go out of our way to work with Inspiring Young Minds and other organizations that help us discover the diversity that we want on campus. And we will put time and financial resources into making sure that we have you as part of our world, so that our world represents the real world.
And I'm gonna do something that I know they're gonna kill me for, but I think it's just a really important topic for the students to give their perspective to about their experience. And I think there's a little risk to always having the students speak without really being prepared, but I think their honest kind of answer in terms of talking about the diversity and inclusion at a junior boarding school would be important. So Isaiah and Kira, I'm going to put you on the spot here. So if you guys could just talk a little bit about your experience and some of the opportunities you've seen on campus, and kind of what it's like to come into a diverse community, and what that feels like from the students' experience.
So coming in like as a Black kid is different in PWI like institutions, because boarding schools weren't normally built for kids like me that look like me. So it was different coming into a community that was more diverse, even though there were, like in my school, there were more races, like we're a majority than people who look like me. But I think like we have community connections, which I'm a leader, and we have started a students of color group, at school. And I'm a part of that as well. So we just have different clubs, have different things to include students of color, and it's just great.
Like Isaiah said, we have community connections and the student of color group. And our school goes to different student diversity conferences. So last year I went to an 8th grade one, and this year me and Isaiah are both going to a 9th grade one.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Let's see, Greg, Chip, anybody else wants to talk more about that topic before we move on? All right.
I don't have anything major to include. The folks have stated it very clearly. It's a major commitment at Fessenden as well as all of the schools. We had hired a DEI main administrator last year, prior to everything going on in the summer. I think it's worth, I think a lot of these schools have a morning meeting. I think that is a real sense of community where, in our case, boys are able to stand up in a really comfortable environment and share with their peers. That is such an important thing, that we're not able to put the 200 upper school students in the same room for morning meeting, but we're doing it virtually with the boys spread around the school. It's that important for us, for the boys to have a safe forum to communicate, as well as affinity groups and whatnot.
Thanks, Greg. Let's see. Ooh, we got a lot of questions coming in. So, what type of social emotional learning programs are offered? Let's see, Matt, you want to take that one?
I'd love to. So as I mentioned before, I think kind of building these types of things into the kind of day-to-day curriculum is really something that at this age is incredibly important. Rather than kind of waiting for these types of issues to come out and to be proactive as a school. So, I would say at Fay, and I know at a number of these schools, probably all of these schools, it is built into the curriculum to have this kind of social and emotional education. We call it our wellness program, and wellness can mean a lot of different things, but it's kind of the modern day health class, and that's kind of how I describe it, where we really talk about different issues in that classroom environment that are happening to the students today and this week and this month. So kind of really the most topical issues for the students. In that class, we talk about anger management, we talk about stress management, we talk about conflict resolution. We discuss mindfulness. We talk about relationships and how to manage a romantic relationship, how to kind of really kind of figure yourself out in terms of your social and emotional needs, and those interactions that you have with other students and the other community members. So like I said, I mean, we have programs that are built directly into that. We also have a lot of opportunities outside of the classroom, where, in terms of whether it's a club or it's a committee or it's, again, I bring up the Community Connections group, where it's different types of safe places for students to talk about awkward things. And there are a lot of awkward things at this age, and they're going through a lot of different, changes in their life. And they all want to act like they know how to handle it. And I think our job as a school and as educators is to give them the proper support for that and the proper tools to be able to kind of head into those situations with some confidence, and with some resources and a little bit of background education on kind of, okay, this is a moment where I have to use what I learned. And I think that our teachers do a great job of building that curriculum up through the grades. So obviously ninth graders are talking about different things than seventh graders are talking about. And, we try and make it very specific to the grade level and to what the students' needs are. So I think listening to the students is also another really important piece to this. It's, as much as we would love to just say, hey, yep, this is what you're going to go through and this is what you're going to experience, it doesn't always work out that way. We can't tell students exactly what they're going to experience with their social life or, and with their emotions. So we have to really listen to our students as well. And I think that all of these schools do an amazing job of really making sure that the students are heard. And so when they do come across some of these issues, or they do have some of these things going on with them, they feel confident to speak up and to go find, an adult in that moment, or at least speak up in the class so that we know, okay, this is an issue that our students in our community is dealing with in the moment.
Can I add to that, Carrie?
Yep, definitely.
So we all have formal programs at all of our schools. It's actually Matt saying it's the modern health class. We actually call it health and wellness at Rectory. That's what we use. We also have our advisory program that will deal with a lot of issues and adolescent issues as they come up, and we want to be proactive. But I would say just on a larger scale, I think we have a lot of informal help at all of our schools too. You would be sending your child to a school where people have dedicated their lives to living with and enriching 10 to 15-year-olds, which is such a unique environment to be in. We have K through 9 programs at most of our schools, but our residential programs are either 5th through 9th grade or 6th through 9th grade at our schools. And we have a large portion of our faculty members who live on campus. They're going to be your child's teachers. They're going to be your child's coaches. They're going to be your child's dorm parents. And like I said, they've dedicated their lives, often for most of us, for 10 to 20 years of living on a campus and working with adolescent children. So there are formal programs set up at all of our schools, and they may look a little bit different, but I would say the one common thread for each and every one of our schools is the passion that our faculty members have, the experience that they have to really work with your children, knowing that they are, as Matt said, they're evolving and they're learning things about themselves and they're changing during these years. And we're equipped to really help them when they do hit little bumps in the road.
Thanks for that, Evan.
I would actually just like to add one more thing. I'm sorry, we keep adding on these different
You're
things.
fine, Doc.
You know, a lot of our schools also, if not all of them, have school counselors, and that is another layer. And specifically for Bement, as a smaller boarding community, one thing that we are able to do is that we have monthly lunches with our school counselors. So we do a group of boys 1 week, and then a group of girls the other week will meet with the school counselor and have like a lunch with them. And it's a chance, gives them, the students, a bit of a voice for them to be able to talk about issues, what it is like to be a boarding student in school as a young child, and to talk about different issues like that. And so I think that's also something that we are able to offer our students, and to be able to give them another sounding board that's in addition to their advisor, their dorm parent, their teachers, and the other adults in the community.
Thank you for that addition. Oh, wow. Let's see. A question for the students. Kiera, Isaiah, either one of you guys can answer this one. How accessible are your teachers when you're academically challenged? And give one example. Isaiah.
So on Tuesdays, I believe we have an extra help session for like 30 minutes after sorry, after the school day. And then during study hall at night after dinner from 7 to 8:30, we have chances to go see teachers if we have questions on any homework and stuff like that.
You have an example of when you were ever challenged?
Math homework for this class. It was really hard. And then my dorm parent actually, I went to him. He actually helped me out with the problem, so that was cool.
Thank you, Kiera. Do you have any instance in which this happened as well?
I would probably say for my Chinese homework, I would always go to my Chinese teacher during extra help to get help.
And you guys have no problem with getting help when needed, right?
Right.
Right. So this question is a general question about support group for the parents that are, missing their kids, want to talk to the faculty members. Are there specific support groups for parents? PTA, etc. Ben, let's go to you for that one.
I can answer that one. So we all have sort of parent groups, and what kind of evolves is, like a lot of my New York City parents all kind of hang out together and have a great relationship, and they'll get together for like coffees, or they'll get together for like dinners. This is kind of pre-COVID. Now I guess they'll do like little Zoom sessions to see how everybody's doing. But one of the great benefits of using IYM is that you have Mark and an incredible team who's there to help you. And, as that transition, the hardest part is transitioning to our schools. But my advice to you is, wherever your child ends up, just have trust in the process, and have trust in all those adults who are supporting your child, because you're going to have the advisors who are going to be your main point of contact. And I know not everyone, I've been in junior boarding schools for 18 years, so I can kind of get away with this, and I give them all my cell phone number. And some of my new parents, they text me 2 or 3 times a day, and that's overkill, but that's okay. Because that's what these parents need. I'd rather them bother me and allow their child to have a little bit more space to find themselves. And it's my job to help parents understand your son and daughter, they're very happy right now. And I'm always during the day, I'll be sneaking around campus and getting some like candid pictures, and I'm texting them to the parents, and they're like, "Oh, you weren't kidding. They are happy after all. This is great." But you know, and there will be times, especially as you get going, that you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't heard from my son in 3 or 4 days. Like, what's going on?" It's not that they don't love you. It's just that they're so busy and so caught up in the routine of life here that it never even, they can't even think about calling home. But you create such a robust team around your child, because you have the dorm parents, you have the advisor, you have the teachers, you have the coaches, and you have all the people who are surrounding your child in the other areas of life as well, such as the administrators, the art teachers, the music teachers, and all that. But there's a reason why on the first day of school we give you a list of phone numbers and a list of email addresses, and that the advisor sits down and says, "Listen, call me if you ever have a question," because we want it to be a team, and it works so much better when we're all on the same page, when we're all doing what's best for your child. And oftentimes it just helps to have, you know, as I say to parents, is that they go from overnight, they switch over from being a disciplinarian into becoming a cheerleader. And for parents, that's really difficult to do. But we're here to bridge that gap and encourage the child on their way. And then we're going to take over that disciplinarian job and that job of gently getting them to where they need to be. And then you get to be the rah, 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 let's go, let's rally behind them and let's kick butt kind of person.
Thanks so much, Ben. That was good. I definitely experienced that when my two went away and they weren't calling home. I'm like, wow, 3 days, 4 days. I'm like, what's going on? You guys got to pick up the phone. But it was an experience, and they definitely grew from their experiences there. Okay, so let's see. We can have, wow, quite a bit of coming in now. Okay, let's see. Evan, do the students have the option to board Monday to Friday and then come home on weekends?
Yes, but we're not allowing it right now because of COVID. So I feel like with a lot of questions, there's the right now answer and there's the typical school year answer. So right now we're not, and that's just in an effort to safeguard our community. So we don't have any 5-day boarding. We have either 7-day boarding, or our students are day students. But what we do have in a typical school year is a 5-day boarding option. We haven't had many students, and I know IYM typically deals with a lot of students from New York and then maybe some Pennsylvania, New Jersey as well. We haven't had many 5-day boarders come from the city. It would typically be closer to the Boston area for us, just in terms of distance, but we'd be happy to have that discussion with you. We project that next year, as long as everything settles down, which is always our goal, that we would plan on reopening 5-day boarding. The only thing that I would say to parents would be that sometimes you're going to have Saturday games, or you're going to have Saturday obligations. They might have an SSAT test that they need to take. They might have a game that they need to play on a Saturday. So your 5-day boarding turns into 6 or 5 3/4. And if that's the case, we're willing to work with you, and maybe you stay there for the full weekend. You know, at our school, and I would believe it works the same with other schools, we're not going to charge you in those situations additional money. Obviously, if you're here because of a requirement, you're here because it's a requirement. The only other thing I would say, just because I used to do all of our secondary school placement here at Rectory, do not expect a lot of high schools to have 5-day boarding, because high schools are going to have classes or some sort of programming on Saturday morning, and then Saturday afternoon is going to be a game day. So if you are looking for 5-day boarding as a transition to a junior boarding school, just anticipate that you are more than likely going to have to be a 7-day boarder in high school. You can use that junior boarding school as that dip the toe in the water, get used to it, get familiar before you transition out. But know that it would be just the 5-day boarding most likely for the junior school experience before you go off and you're a 7-day boarder in high school.
Thanks for that, Evan. Okay, so there are a few questions that came in surrounding internet access and how is it monitored, tech time, etc. Charles, do you want to chime in on that?
Sure. Thanks, Carrie. This is back to sort of what I was saying about security and the difference between junior boarding schools and secondary schools. Our security, not only on campus, but also technologically, if you will, is a little tighter. We do have the traditional firewall that will turn on every evening before. So there's certain sites that they can't get to at all. There's obviously sites they need during the day. We do something unique, and I'm not certain some of my peer schools do this or not, but we go sort of off the grid the first 2 weeks. So kids can bring their cell phones. They get issued laptops, but we don't have any technology, no use of those cell phones for the first 2 weeks. And that's because, back to sort of that piece about emotional and social health, we're really trying to, at the beginning of the year, have these kids interact with one another, form those relationships, those bonds with not only each other, but the adults in the community. And I think that, we all know how kids can be, and adults for that matter, with phones. It can be an excuse to not interact, right? It can be a barrier. And so we take that out of the mix, and like a lot of that's been said tonight, like study hall, we're all doing it at the same time. Everybody's studying from 6 to 7:30. So if everybody's doing it, you don't get a whole lot of pushback. And that's the same with the technology. Nobody has phones for the first 2 weeks. Then what we do is we sort of ease in our boarders. We have tech bins in in each dorm. So when they wake up in the morning and they're getting ready and they have a couple of free minutes, they can use their phone to check in with folks at home or do whatever they'd like to do. And then they're leaving it in the dorm. They're not taking it over to the main building, and they're getting it back at the end of sports at 5. So basically during free time, they have their phones. On the weekends, they can have their phones, but they're not using them during the academic day. In terms of during the academic day, we use some technology that we've implemented recently with issuing laptops to every student. We use some software called Land School Air that some other schools may use. What that does, it allows our teachers at any given moment to see what's on the screen of a kid in the class. So that to make sure that we're not using these machines to watch YouTube clips during history class. It's a pretty powerful tool. It can also just sort of shut down the computers as well. So I'm getting into a little more specifics there, but it's all about balance. Technology is a wonderful educational tool that all of our teachers use in our community. We use it, but it's also a fine line, and it's all about balance. And so we work on that each and every day.
Thanks so much, Charles. So I have a couple of parent questions that are on the panel. Baron, I'll turn to you on this one. How often do you communicate with the teachers and advisors regarding your student?
Okay, so yes, we get a lot of communication with Indian Mountain, the faculty, teachers, advisors. In fact, when I was talking to another parent, as I was a volunteer parent helping other parents get into the prep school scene, at the junior boarding level, it seems like we're getting an email almost every other day in communication. We get it from the headmaster. Sometimes we'll get from the dean of students. Then you get the residential life. Then you get his advisor. And so you're never left out in the dark, and you get, like many have mentioned, a lot of eyes on your child. And so it's a good thing. Even in fact, during the summer, I felt like everything was still like in the school year, because we were just getting updated on what's the protocols for COVID, what's the next academic steps. As Noble was going to be a prefect, other courses of meeting together with other prefects. I even had a question that was raised in terms of some of the curriculum and some of the reading material. And it was an opportunity for me to engage. I engaged the English teacher over the summer. I engaged the residential Kyle, life director, over the summer, just because of some things that were personal to me and my family and some of the other families who were going to Indian Mountain. And the door is always open. And so communication is the basis of life. And so we were never left in the dark. And that's one thing that we can assure that you experience at the junior boarding level. When they didn't communicate.
Thank you so much, Baron, for that. So guys, I think we're at the end. To be mindful of the time and respectful of everyone's time, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Mark. If there are any other questions, I will put all of the contact info back in the chat. You guys can, reach out to these schools directly if you have any other questions. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Carrie. I just want to remind you guys that, the next 2 days, be sure to register for the sessions if you haven't done so already. You'll get to hear more from these junior boarding schools, and you'll get to hear from secondary schools. Like Carrie said, if you have any other questions that you want to didn't get answered, she's going to post those contact information in the chat room. So I'd like to thank everyone. More importantly, I'd like to thank our schools. Typically, I would say thank you for coming down to New York, but that doesn't apply here, but I'll still say it. Thank you once again. We are so humbled and grateful for you guys spending this time with us. And more importantly, for giving these families that have registered today all this information. I can see, that they've kept the consistent number there is, 47, and no one is left. So that's good. But thank you again, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow and Sunday. Thanks again. Bye and good night.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.